Okay, so since the EU referendum last Thursday, which apparently wasn't about immigration or the loss of Britishness, we've seen a lot of people becoming inflamed about race, immigration, and the loss of Britishness. It's all very bizarre, but apparently there are no correlations. The claims of shocking racism in the last 2 weeks with increased racial hatred attacks don't shock me. I don't feel shocked at all. And I'm actually more shocked that people are shocked about this. The reason being is that we don't talk about racism in Britain ever. This Is England was the first time I ever saw racism in Britain on a screen. Usually we're watching, American films about slavery and about the race conflicts there. And yeah, This Is England was the first time I ever saw anything kind of paralleled to that on a British screen. And then This Is England kind of spiraled into an epic TV series about drug abuse and sexual assault, which I guess is easier for the British public to digest and to understand than the fact that there might be racism in their culture. We live in a country that can sit on its moral high horse because we see race issues in America and they're so blown up, they're so ornate and so ostentatious and conspicuous, and we feel like racism doesn't exist in Britain because it doesn't manifest with the same symptoms as outward racism does in America. But I feel like this kind of racism that we have in Britain, that has only just become highlighted since the EU referendum, is very dangerous. It's the quiet racism, it's the racism that shakes your hand and it smiles at you and it teaches you, and it fixes your plumbing, and it pulls your pint, and it generally acts like an anti-racist, but it doesn't ever call for the end of racism, and sometimes is racist behind closed doors. During the referendum, I actually got increasingly more annoyed with people telling me that voting Leave doesn't mean that they're a racist. I understand this. I understand. Please come to me and comfort yourself and comfort your own sense of privilege without actually doing anything to address the issues of racism that were littered in the Leave campaign and in anti-immigration rhetoric. Saying I'm not a racist while ignoring racism around you and sitting next to people saying racist things is how supremacy prevails and how racism becomes normalised. We literally live in a country where a woman can write in the biggest and most popular family newspaper that immigrants are cockroaches, where our Prime Minister can use language like swarm of migrants to dehumanise these people, where the Chancellor of Oxford University can say that by increasing levels of ethnic diversity in Oxbridge universities that it might reduce standards of educational achievement, where my mum fears me being so politically active because she thinks that I'm heightening my chances of being racially attacked, where far-right anti-immigrant rhetoric can begin to change and transform and mutate and bastardise our language, and where British people living abroad can be known as expats and not immigrants, because immigrant has a certain connotation. Where does that connotation come from? We create language. Language does not exist in a pure intrinsic form. The word immigrant became negative and got negative connotations through our use of it, through our understanding of it, through the media, and we can't sit here and say that racism doesn't exist in the UK Our racism might not be violent and conspicuous like American racism, but we suffer a real structural issue, an issue that was behind closed doors before this EU referendum, which I think is worse, because now we are acting like these issues of race are new issues. They're not new issues. We have built this structure on which the supremacy of Britishness is up here, and anything that isn't British and anything that doesn't integrate is right down here. But how can you integrate, and how can you feel like you want to belong in a society that simultaneously ostracizes you and vilifies you? Okay, so, you know, subscribe and tell me how you feel, and I know I might get some backlash for this and whatever, like, deuces. Thanks!